My name is Janet Monday, and we have our instructor, David Idowu. So, once again, good morning. It's West African time, and today we'll be looking at how misconfigurations are exploited, like we published before. So, it's the hacker's blueprint, and today we thought we'll delve into real world network attacks and techniques, and we will look into how attackers exploit system vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, from sniffing traffic to simulating man in the middle attacks. The section will expose critical network attack vectors and provide step-by-step demos to understand the hacker's mindset. So stay put, have your questions ready. Whatever you do not understand, please feel free to ask questions. It's an interactive section. Once we are done with the theoretical aspect of this session, we will be connecting immediately to our virtual labs, which is the Hack365 Global, where everything you'll be taught on this theoretical sections will be carried out on the lab. So please feel free to note down your questions. Whatever you do not understand, feel free to call the instructor's attention to it, and he will take whatever questions that you have. So we'll be starting right away, and nice to have you all here today. Thank you. So we'll start right away.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session. And for today, we're going to be looking at paths to breach. And we're going to be taking you guys into how misconfigurations are exploited. It's confirm that I can hear me. Can you please confirm that I can hear me? Can you hear me? All right, thank you. Okay, so we'll just take an introduction, then have a theoretical approach to learning, then we'll also have a practical session, and there'll be room for questions and discussions. Now, for today, our objectives are to understand how advanced network testing is, understand the methodology of privilege escalation, also want to understand target environments, the client and server architecture, and use essential tools for network movements and exploitation. All right, so by way of introduction, what is a network security breach? So a network security breach is the process of simulating real-world attack scenarios to identify, exploit, and escalate vulnerabilities in network systems and services, with the objective of gaining unauthorized access and simulating adversarial behavior post-compromise. So basically, what this means is you're trying to simulate a real-world attack scenario that involves identifying weaknesses, exploiting those weaknesses to gain foothold, escalating privileges, and the whole aim and objective of this activities to gain unauthorized access and simulate adversarial behavior after compromising the system. So this goes beyond basic scans and common exploits, focuses on custom payloads, chainable misconfigurations, and multi-layered attack strategies. So what this means is there is no specific go-to path to exploiting this. It's a result of multi-layered strategies that revolve around the attacks. Right. So unlike a simple vulnerability scan, which merely identifies known weaknesses, a network breach actively attempts to exploit those vulnerabilities to demonstrate the real-world impact of a security attack. This process helps a system understand its security posture, from an attacker's perspective. To assess the effectiveness of their defenses and prioritize remediation efforts to strengthen their network security. Right, so what's the purpose of this? It's number one, want to access security controls and identify weaknesses. Second of all, want to understand the attack surface of the network, evaluate the effectiveness of patching and configurations, meet compliance and regulatory requirements, and prevent unauthorized accesses and data breach. So we have the type of network penetration testing, which we covered last week. We explained the concept of an external network pen testing that has to do with targets that are internet-facing assets that have public IPs, firewalls, web servers, VPNs. Also, in an internal penetration test, you want to simulate an attacker that is outside the organization. So here you have a little information that involves you working with open ports, expectable vulnerabilities, weak identifications, and basic misconfigurations that you have. Secondly, you have an internal network penetration test which simulates an insider threat or an attacker that has breached perimeter defenses. So it means you are now an attacker that has access to the internal network, basically. So the target focuses on internal servers, workstations, switches, databases, and it's often test privilege escalation and lateral movement that exists within the network. And then we have the network segmentation testing, which is used to ensure proper isolation between critical systems, production and guest networks, clients and server networks, and the likes. Now, the phases. Now, for the first phase, which has to do with planning and scoping, you want to define your goals and your objectives. You want to identify in-scope IP addresses, domains, and systems. So as much as you have a full network, some IP addresses can be out of scope, meaning you shouldn't be testing on those IP addresses. So you want to have a proper idea of the scope of agreement of rules of engagement. What are the things I'm supposed to do? What are the things can't I do? Some clients or in some engagements, you can be mandated not to perform attacks such as, or not to test for attacks such as denial of service, because this is more of an infrastructure attack, and you don't want to um, you don't want to launch an attack that could cause potential harm to assets that are currently live in production. So you have to determine the rules of engagement. You want to determine the testing type, which is either black box, white box, or gray box. Now move to recon. Now in recon, passive recon, we discuss the difference between passive recon and active recon. Passive recon, often known as OSINT, is the use of, involves the process of gathering information without interacting directly with the target. These tools like freeze record, DNS elimination, and OSINT tools. Active recon, on the other hand, it's used when you're performing network scans to identify live ports, open ports, running services, and operating system fingerprinting. So what basically is the difference? In active recon, you're working directly with the what do we call it now? With the target. So you perform an nmap scan or a network mapping scan on the target directly. What you're doing is you're interacting with the target directly. So that is called an active information gathering. On the other hand, where you're just performing an open search for targets and information you can gather about this target without involving the target directly, you're performing passive reconnaissance. So now, okay, so yeah, we see network reconnaissance is the first step in a penetration test, allowing attackers to map the target's IP attack surface. It involves discovering live hosts, open ports, and services to identify potential vulnerabilities. So you see an example of an active host discovery. So let's say you run net discover, app scan, ping, whatever the case, alongside the IP address. That is an active information gathering procedure. For example, net discover, I think R192.168.56.024. This scans the subnet for devices responding to app requests. If you are scanning the subnet, you're performing an active performance. So port scanning also, which is the primary tool for discovering open ports and services. Some of the commonly used flags in Nmap include -SC, which is used to test for default NSC scripts, -SV for service version detection, and -O for operating system fingerprinting. Now move to the enumeration phase. This involves identifying versions of services and possible misconfigurations, mapping trust relationships and network shares, scanning for known vulnerabilities, which is most times CVE based. So for the tools, you have your Nmap scripts, Nessus, OpenVAS, Nixo, SMB clients, and Enim for Linux. The service enumeration. So after identifying live hosts on open ports in the first stage, enumeration focuses further on identifying on interacting with services to extract useful metadata. So this means enumeration is not just about using Nmap. Enumeration is a big deal that is a continuous process, depending on how you look at it. So take, for instance, services like FTP. Something called FTP enumeration will involve you checking for anonymous login checks. File directory transversal. In SMB enumeration, you want to check for things like null sessions, share discovery of shells, version extraction, that be probably it's running an SMB version 1 on SMB version 2, HTTP and HTTPS enumeration, banner grabbing, the use of WhatWeb, Nixo, GoBuster, directory search, and web server misconfiguration and hidden content. SSH and RDP involves network version analysis and brute force configurations. Now move to exploitation. Now, this involves attempting to exploit discovered vulnerabilities. Now, so example of attack vectors, we have exploiting unpatched services. For example, MS17010, which is the popular internal blue exploit, is a popular exploit that is used on which system? The Windows system. So it's a vulnerability that is patched with the Windows, I think it's 2007 or not the Windows XP's exploits. So if you have, take for instance, you have an old version of Windows running on the server, you know that it is vulnerable to an internal blue vulnerability. Then you also want to check for weak or default credentials on SSH, RDP, or FTP. So we're looking for credentials like admin, root admin root, and the likes. Man in the middle attacks on unencrypted traffic. So this is an attack that you find most likely on a system that is running on just HTTP because of lack of SSL, TLS SSL on the network or on the system. SNMP brute force for service information. So here you want to use tools like Metasploit, like the Metasploit framework. The Metasploit framework is a library that has a bunch of scanners, exploits, auxiliary scanners that can be used to test for vulnerabilities, systems, and whatnot. Hydra is a popular tool that is commonly used for brute forcing of any kind, ranging from brute forcing passwords for any form of services at all. Crack map exec is a tool that is used in Active Directory enumeration. So you want to enumerate an Active Directory for possible logins or live IP addresses or logins to a domain or whatever the case is. Crack map is your guy. Responder also have exploit DB scripts. Now move to post exploitation, which is where bulk of the work comes in a network breach, which has to do with lateral movement. Now, what is lateral movement? Lateral movement refers to the techniques attackers use to move deeper into a compromised network, hopping from system to system to expand control and access higher value targets. So now note that the how to here is not a cheat code or a systematic way of doing it. Lateral movements can happen anyway, depending on your understanding of how to move laterally. The basic thing here is to understand the concept of lateral movement, which would help when you're trying to perform such activity. So you want to look for how you can harvest credentials, which involves extracting plain text credentials from either config files or FTP dumps. Also, you want to harvest from a .bash history files or SSH directories. Then you want to see how you can perform password reuse, public password spraying. Tools like crackmap exec, for instance, can help you to password spray an entire domain for which of it works on a particular target. Then you want to have something called SSH pivoting using stolen credentials. I believe you know what pivoting is. So basically, pivoting means to take, for instance, I have an access to an external network. I have an access to the face of the network. Let's say, for instance, 192.168.1 or 04/24. And I'm able to compromise that particular machine or compromise that particular network. But then the thing is, that particular network has an internal network inside of it. Take, for instance, another network on a particular adapter, a separate network adapter that it has access to that I cannot have access to because it is an internal network. Take, for instance, 10.10.0, whatever the case is. Now, pivoting helps you to communicate to the internal machine using the compromised machine. So what it means is you pivoted into the internal machine because now you're communicating with the internal machine using the external machine. The reason is because you've compromised the external machine. So now in cases, you can have cases such that you can perform something called a double pivoting. So a case can come where that internal machine also has another machine that is on it on a separate adapter. Take, for instance, a system has multiple network adapters. It has access to the network on those adapters. But because you have access to the network, it does not mean you have access to the adapter. So what you're going to do is you're going to exploit the internal machine using the compromised machine. So any attack you're going to be throwing is going to be coming from the external machine. You cannot perform such attacks on your own machine. So when you pivot, you're kind of mimicking the external machine. That's why it's called pivoting. You've pivoted your network. Hope it makes sense now. Exactly. So SSH pivoting is a method of pivoting which involves using, take for instance, you found SSH credentials. You've compromised the system by just having the SSH credentials on that particular network. That can help you to pivot into an internal network using a tool called S-Shuttle, which pivots you inside. Another method of pivoting can be through using of a tool called Ligolo. Sometimes you perform port forwarding. Port forwarding involves you communicating to the internal machine on a particular port. So you route traffic from a particular port such that you can receive feedback on your own machine. So it's called port forwarding because now you are forwarding traffic from a particular port. Now, this is also a method of lateral movement. SMB relay and file execution involves exploiting writable shares to plant payloads for remote execution. Now, so basically, what is privilege escalation? Privilege escalation is the act of gaining higher level permissions, e.g. roots for a system, after compromising a lower privilege account. Type of privilege escalation. You have a vertical escalation and a horizontal escalation. Vertical escalation involves gaining higher privileges on the same machine. Horizontal escalation involves gaining access to other user accounts on the same level. So what do we mean? Yes, everything is lateral movement. It's just a definition of the direction at which it goes. Take, for example, when you're treating web applications, for instance, I'm going to use web applications because they are the best method of description right now. So if you're using web applications, for example, take, for instance, you are able to perform something called an insecure direct object reference, where you can modify or perform arbitrary action on another user's account. Take, for example, you can delete his posts, you can edit his profile, and you're able to do that by probably changing a parameter that was supposed to help you edit your own code. Probably as an ID parameter that you can change from 1 to 2, and then not changing another person's. It's called an insecure direct object reference. Now, but actually, that is called a horizontal privilege escalation. The reason is because you performed an action that affects somebody on the same level with you, because you both have the same amount of information, and you've been able to exploit another person's account or another person's system. So you people are on the same level, so it's called horizontal. But in a case where you perform an action that gives you that an admin is supposed to perform as a regular user, it's called a vertical privilege escalation. The reason is because we have hierarchy and admin is up and you're down. It's the same way it is for networks also. So if you're able to exploit a system in such a way that you're able to get an admin account or you become root by some way, you perform vertical privilege escalation. But in a system, in a situation where, take for example, you change another, you found, let's say, take Active Directory for instance, we have a domain that has a number of users. And then because it's as an Active Directory, users have permissions and privileges. So some users have more privileges than other users. Take, for instance, a user has a generic rights privilege, and you are just a regular user. And then you're able to exploit it in such a way that you take over that person's account and you use that person's account to perform another thing. What you've done is you've done horizontal privilege escalation because you've moved horizontally in the network. You're both users. Exactly. So it's still privilege escalation. It's still lateral movement. It's just a definition of the direction at which it happens. Now, how does privilege escalation happen? You want to find how you can enumerate vulnerable kernel versions with username A. You want to use exploit DB or search exploits to identify matching exploits. You want to use identify binaries with find permissions, like in 4000. You want to escalate via misconfigured SETUID programs, and you want to look for weak file permissions, probably modifying startup scripts, cron jobs, editing service configurations. Now, upon privilege escalation, you want to perform something called persistence and how to evade defense. Now, persistence refers to the mechanism that allows an attacker to maintain access to a system after reboot or detection. Come again, it's a mechanism that allows an attacker to maintain access to a system after the system has been probably rebooted or it has been detected to have been a breach. Techniques. You want to set up SSH backdoor, you want to set up a backdoor. So by adding your own key to authorized key, you have your own backdoor by doing that. By placing a shell on a particular script, let's say you plant in, there's a particular endpoint that doesn't validate file uploads properly, and then you plant in your web shell, and then that serves as a backdoor for you, which you can trigger whenever you want to have access. You want to have a startup script injection, editing bash, RC cron jobs, or service script. This is very much relatable as you commonly know. When, say for instance, a hacker hacks your social media accounts, one of the first things the hacker wants to do is to change your password. And the reason is because he wants to have a backdoor. That way, upon detection that your account has been hacked, you still cannot get the account back because he has changed your password. So he's the one that has access. So that's what makes you an advanced persistent threat, known as an APT. Now, you want to find how to evade detection. You want to find how you can edit your history, edit the bash history, which is always there on any network or any system. You want to edit that file. You want to clear logs that have the VAR log, authentication logs that is used to monitor logs for possible connections and the likes. You also want to find how you can hide processes using NOH op.disown and renaming payload to legitimate looking name. So you have a payload and you want to rename it to make it look like it's not a payload that you know is a payload. That's the way of evading detection. And also using default tools like wget, curl, Python, or Bash to perform specific tasks in order to avoid detection. Now, move to common network vulnerabilities found during pen testing or in a network breach. Want to check for open ports and unnecessary services that are running, outdated or unpatched operating systems or software, weak default or reused credentials, insecure network protocols like FTP, Telnet, or HTTP, improper firewall and access control level configurations, lack of network segmentation, unsecured SNMP configurations, poorly configured VPNs, or exposed RDP services. So we'll move to the practical session for today. And for today, we're going to be taking a look at the offensive operations category. So we have two labs to form. We have the Empire Breakout Lab and the Empire Ripping One Lab to form. So let's just head over to hack365global.com. Move to the advanced section. Head over to the offensive security, and then we have two Empire Labs, the Empire Breakout Lab. We also have another lab called Empire Ripping One. So here, it says the network penetration test is a simulated cyber attack on a computer network to find security vulnerabilities. Ethical hackers often refer to it as a red team engagement. They use the same tools and techniques as malicious attackers do to evaluate an organizational defense and see if they can gain unauthorized access. The goal isn't to cause harm, but to identify weaknesses and provide recommendations for strengthening security. The phases of a network pen test. A typical pen test follows a structured methodology, often broken down into several key phases, such as reconnaissance. In this initial stage, the attacker gathers as much information as possible about the target network. This can be done passively using publicly available information or actively, which involves directly interacting with the network. Tools like Nmap are used to scan for open ports and identify active hosts, operating systems, and services. The goal is to build a detailed map of the network's attack surface. Gaining access and exploitation. With a solid understanding of the network, the attacker attempts to exploit identified vulnerabilities to gain initial access. This might involve exploiting a known software flaw using default credentials or leveraging misconfigurations. The aim here is to get a foothold in the network. Now, post-exploitation, once inside, the attacker doesn't stop. This is where the real challenge begins. The post-exploitation phase involves privilege escalation, moving from a lower level account to an account with a higher level account, like administrator. Lateral movement, moving from the initially compromised system to another system in the network. Data exfiltration, simulating the theft of sensitive information. This is where a sophisticated command and control comes into play. Now, the final challenge. Using Empire as a C2 framework. The first challenge of this simulated network pen test involves the use of Empire. Empire is an open source post-exploitation framework that's popular among both ethical hackers and malicious actors. It's designed to help attackers maintain persistent access to a compromised system, escalate privileges, and move laterally through a network, all while evading network detection. Using Empire effectively in a pen test demonstrates active skills, advanced skills. It requires you to not only gain initial access, but to establish a C2 channel, convert, it, create a convert communication channel between an attack machine and the compromised host, deploy an agent, deploy a small static program on the target system, execute various breaching models to perform post-exploitation tasks such as dumping credentials, running keyloggers, and taking screenshots. So we find out that what command line utility was used to gain access to the file with higher privileges. So firstly, we have to find the Empire breakout machine, which we can just do. So this machine is currently on, we head over to Run Hub. We have the machine right there, and we can just search for Empire. So you can just download the machine here for yourself, and then just boot into our machine and begin from there. Offensive operations. Now, we've been told our IP address from here is 192.168.56.112. So right now we'll just boot into our attack box. And from here, just run a net discover command. And okay, so now we've been able to identify our target breakout. So we've been able to identify our IP address of our machine. And then from here, we can perform a network map scan on 192.168.112. Then we wait for, and okay, so we have a bunch of services currently running on our target machine. So from here, all we could continue to do is perform an operating system fingerprinting or perform a comprehensive scan that would tell us the versions of each of the services that are running. That would help in our enumeration phase. So for us to do that, use the command or use the tags like in SC, or you can use both of them. So use both of them. That way, Yes. Yes. So this gives us extra information on the so okay. So first of all, we know that we have an Apache server currently running on this. Then we also have two more HTTP services running on port 10,000 and port 20,000. So what we could do first, we head over to our browser and check the current activity on. So just type in 192. Okay, this is what we have. Yeah, we just on port 10,000. It says error document follows. This web server is currently in SSL mode. Try the URL this instead. Quickly. Okay, we are here to the login page for this. Now let's check for the other 192.168.4 20,000. Okay, this is also running on SSL. Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Hmm. Let's log that thing. All right. Let's see if we can gather information on a particular box. So let's try SND. Or do we do an enable for Linux on the target and see what we're able to pull out? Okay, so I see something here. Says unique user cyber. To me, there's a user called cyber on the system. Um, let's see. Let's try to do the source code. Nothing interesting going on here. Let's do the source code too. Hmm. Hmm. What's that? Let's just copy that. Hmm. Type this in. Says, don't worry, no one will get here except you. This looks like an encryption. What type of encryption is this? Looks like a brain fog function. It looks like a brain fog encryption. Yes, or this looks like something that is in a brain fog. Or we can just try this, what is it? Code. cryptography. Let's identify what kind of cipher that is. Let's look at, try to analyze. It says no encryption. Okay, brain fog is there. I hear, but it has a low Big Latin, substitution cipher, a double transposition cipher. Mm, let's try brain fog. Looks like brain fog code. Let's send this to, what's this? Have this as a result. Could this be the password? Let's see. I'm seeing there's a broken parameter here. So I think it will just limit what we copy. Probably copy just this. And that's what I'm looking at. Probably we'll just copy this. And let's try another two stats. Okay, let's see. Copy. Yes, so this is a decoder, an online decoder that we can use for decoding. So let's try to see if we can log in. Sign in. Doesn't work. There's login field. Let's go here. Let's see something. What is running from that? Huh? So, sorry, local user, sidebar, right? Yes, yeah. There is no password here. There is no password here. Any for Linux cannot just give you the password. It just enumerates the number of current services currently on the Linux machine. That's what make us know that there is an active user every time in the main server. What we could do is, let's try, let's see. This one is 2000. It didn't work here. Let's see if it works here. I think it works. Yeah. Okay. So that was Cyber's password. Cyber's password. So we can just take a look at. Did it work? Yes, it did work. Okay. What password and cyber? No, the password we extracted from here. Oh, from here. Yes, this password is the password for the user cyber. What we could do, just take a look at. Possibly, yeah. That's why enumeration is important. So what we could do, we could start um, inspect. Let's check if probably we'll get anything more information on this one. So nothing is here. We have nothing on. Okay. What are these? This is game, favorite, command shell. Okay. Hmm. It opens this up. What happens if I type ls? Oh, okay. I think we have a command, a, a field that allows us to perform command actions. Okay, that's exactly. I think this person has a privilege on the network that allows him to perform command actions. So we can just, so that's one of the things we can note. So we can just, okay, let's check this user login. What would that login be? Login script, command shell, SSH login. The server does not appear to be running an SSH. Oh, this doesn't work. SSH, SSH doesn't, okay, this doesn't work. Nothing can be done here. All right, so let's look at command shell. Okay, I think there is a possible, what happens when I type in ls? Okay, if I cut the user, I should find a way to make my screen bigger. If I cut into user.txt, it doesn't work. Okay, so there's a user flag there, but I want to gain access to the network. What happens when I try to ping something? Network is unreachable. Okay, what happens when I try to ping the co-host? Okay, all right. I think
For that password, they have a password of
which password?
the one that I know you use your location. That empire.
That's just a flag.
So
That's a flag that's found in there. What happened? Okay, so I think what we can do, we can set up a list now. We can just search for reverse shell pen test monkey. So we can try to see if we can get a bash shell. This this is supposed to run a bash shell for us. So what I will just do now is set up my listener. First, let me clear this. If you can need any more, I'll set up my listener on port 8080. Okay, first things first, I need to know my IP address. So I have 192.168.56.1. So I clear that and then type in netcat on port 8080. So this is listening currently. If we come here, change this to set this to 192.168.561. 8080. What is it? Let's hope this works. Click on enter. What does it say? Oh shit. What went wrong? Oh, oh. 192. That's 168. 45, 61. The IP address here was wrong. So the typo, the 192. This should work. What happened? Hmm. Let's do that again. Now to that 168.1. I hit enter. Okay, you're in. So we found the shell connected to this, on the bash shell on the system. Okay. What we could do, type in ls. So now we're actually in the system. So we could do.
No, I tried to get to. No,
Try, yes, I was trying to see how we can become a root user on the network. Because the aim of everything is to become a root user. So what we could do, let's enumerate more. You type in ls -la, there's nothing here. Okay, so if we just go back to cd cyber, okay. Let's go back again. Bunch of things here. If we check. So because this thing is running a web application, I want to check let's check the user directory. User ls. What do we have here? We won't be able to do anything with that. Consider it in the night. So what we want to do now is there's nothing interesting in the user directory, so we could also check the VAR directory. Let's check what is here. So okay, there's a backups folder, OPT. Let's check the OPT folder. This contains a level of information. Nothing is here. Okay, so let's check the backups folder. ls apt. You always want to use ls, I think, LA to find. Okay. There's an old pass back, but this requires root privileges to access this file. This is because, as you can see, the permissions there are just read and write, and the owner of this file is the root user. What happens if I try to load on this code information denied? Okay. Mm. You can't write to the file. And only the root user can do that. Yes, yes. So let's go back a bit. Let's check the TMP folder. Let's say ls, I think. Okay. Let's go back. Also, let's establish something. So it seems to be as though this folder, TMP, has read, write, and execute for every user. These are the rights for every user. So what we could do, we could use star to extract. Let me explain. What we should have, let's see, online things to just establish something. Okay, let's take this. So we have, no, we have this. So we have a file. We have a file, this file right here that we want to access, but it's protected by an area that we can't access. So because of this, we can't have access to the file. But we have access this area. We have access to this area and everything in this area, everything here. So what if we find a way or use a tool or use a utilities control? Remember when we got access to the machine initially, we found something star. This is an extraction utility tool to either extract or zip things. What if we find a way to extract this, or you say compress this or make this an archive, and we move this file that we do not have access to into a place where we have access to. Yes. Remember, we have access to this folder. We have access to read, write, and execute in the TMP folder. So what if we move into the TMP folder and find a way to move this file? We use an extraction utility to move it, to extract it or make it an archive inside this folder. Hereby we can extract it in this folder and have access to it. Does it make sense? Because now we are dealing with permissions, basically. We do not have permission in this area, but we have permission in this area. Does it make sense?
And from this area, you can, from Kama, you can request for others to extract that file.
Not necessarily extract, we make it an archive.
It will require time.
Yes, to extract it here also. It's just an hypothesis. You know? So, first things first, let's perform a PWD. Where am I? Okay. So, so, so we can move to the TMP folder. And okay, so I'm in TMP. So what we can do is we can just say tar, let's name it whatever dot tar and specify var backups. What this is supposed to do is move everything that is in the backups directory to and make it into a tar archive for me in this TMP folder. Does it make sense? Move everything that is here, make it make it a tar archive, name it whatever.tar. Do it. So let's oh shit. So just do one using complete. We have tar PDF, whatever. Dot tar var backups. So let's see what something. Yeah. Cyber tar. This is really I know this. Okay, I think it worked. It's a typo. Supposed to be /home. So I think if we do ls, find whatever.tar here now. And if we just this thing does not show cyber, we don't have okay. So we see that the user cyber has read-write access to this. So we'll just run another tar command, but this time around we're going to extract whatever.tar and I'll extracted this content. So these are the same contents in the backup file that we had up here. The same contents. So we have the APT, the old passbook. Come down here, we have the APT and old passbook. So you always want to check if okay, it's extracted into var. So if we go into less backups, we can try to so let's try to see if we can send into the root user and use this password to see enter. So try to I okay, so now we're able to pawn this machine. So we completed this machine. If we take a my hand is off. I tried on it. It's off from behind. It's off from inside there. Right. Okay. Okay, so we just take what's an overview of everything we've done. So first things first, we started by okay, so we started by logging in. I mean, first things first, we had to view the page source code and we're able to extract the passwords for a particular user And then from there, we were able to establish a command shell or command injection. We perform command injection. So command injection is a vulnerability that allows you to perform arbitrary commands on in networks that are through receiving inputs directly to the server. So we're able to do that and perform a reverse and got a reverse shell. And then from here, we found our way into the systems network and we were able to identify a system utility alongside the user flag. Now from here, the next thing was to properly enumerate the whole system's database, where we found content or we found a file that we didn't have access to in the VAR directory, which was what now? This files. And then so we had to perform a little bit of privilege escalation by using a misconfiguration where we're able to bypass and the contents of the backups folder into our own destination folder. So like as explained here, we're able to move what was inside this particular boundary that we didn't have access to. We moved it to a different folder or a different area we had proper access to where we could read, write, and execute. And then we're able to extract from this particular folder. So hence the choice of us using the TMP folder. I mean, from here, if you noticed, the TMP folder has a read, write, and execute permission. So from there, we just found a way to create an archive, a replica of that particular format folder, but this time around in a destination folder, which is our TMP folder. So we tell it, where is the command? We tell it to create using TAR that is found here, make a new archive for me, named whatever.tar, and we're getting the archive from var.backups. So that way, it moves all the content in the backups folder into a tar zip for a tar archive named whatever.tar, and then everything now comes such that the user cyber has permission to overwrite. If you type in ls.la, you discover that you have a new user permission change from root to cyber, meaning cyber can now perform read and write actions on it, and then from there we're able to extract. And now we are root into the system. So I think no, definitely we always have all of one a particular.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. So my question was that, okay, in this situation now, the fact that the TMP file had all of that access was the issue, or rather, that was how we were able to now get, it to get the file that naturally won't have access to.
No, the default is the misconfiguration is not from the TMP. The misconfiguration is for the ability for the server to allow read and writing of a particular archive to another folder directly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's the misconfiguration. You check through very well, you discover if you go back, you discover that TMP might not necessarily be the only folder that has read and write access sometimes. Although most times TMP is the one that always has a particular permission. TMP is a folder that comes by default. Then like with OTP, VAR, they are always there. It's not something that you configure. Exactly.
They come by default with all of it.
Exactly. They come by default with any network. You get the TMP directory, the VAR directory, the OPT directory, the user directory. They all come and they all come for different things most times. So because of that, you find it such that the misconfiguration for this network is the ability for us to move. I believe there are other ways to run this machine. This is just a way I feel I can do it. So it's just for the ability for us to move a file or the particular archive or create another archive by using the tar utility such that we can move it from one particular place to another particular place where we can actually have access. That's basically what we're able to exploit here. Yeah. So if we would, so now that we've gotten root access, we now have root permissions and we can, found the roots.
And that's what we wanted to do now.
Yeah, so as long as we've done that, we are good. What's this?
Okay, the roots is the O's are different, like they're zeros.
Oh, is it there now? Okay. Okay, so yes, congratulations. All right, yeah, so basically, we've been able to pawn this machine and we can just, from here, so we can just head back to our,
But that flag, we saw it somewhere else.
so there are two flags. There's always the user flag and the root flag.
Okay,
They're not the
okay,
same
okay,
thing.
okay.
They say what command line utility was used to gain access to the file with higher privilege? Tar, enter tar, and
That means that's the only way.
possibly. So now we've been able to complete this lab. So we'll just head over to the next lab and take it up from there. We'll move to Empire Looping 1.
Okay. I'll move this one again.
All right. All right. So, okay. So it says in real-world network intrusion, the attacker's objective really ends with the first machine they compromise. The true test lies in moving deeper into the network, bypassing defenses and maintaining control over critical assets without detection. This lab simulates that journey, taking it from initial recon to advanced post-evaluation exploitation stage. Your mission begins with classic network penetration testing methodology. We've covered this already. The final act of this engagement will be deploying an operating empire with a looping one network. This stage represents the adversary control phase, where you establish stealthy persistence on compromised systems, execute commands and scripts remotely, harvest credentials and sensitive data, simulate an advanced persistent threat, maintain a covert presence in the environment. By the end of this challenge, you would have performed the full kill chain from recon to C2 dominance on a live network simulation. The looping one scenario is designed to test a mixture of network penetration testing in an immersed high-stakes environment where every step brings you closer to the role of a true team operator. Okay, so just we can just power our current machine and boot into next machine. So we have 191.168.1. Exit this and just start a fresh approach. So for this, we have an IP address of 192.168.1.2.3, 192.168.168.56.113. So just make this faster. By typing IP Okay, so this completed already. So okay, we have SSH running, and we have what else? HTTP. So we found a robot.txt file or a robot.txt directory here. We also found and inside of it there is a my files right here. So we found the robot.txt file, and inside of it there is a my files. So let's just quickly take a look at that and see what we are able to. Okay, so let's go to 1.2.168. Let's see what is in the web application itself. What's this? Let's check. It's just an image. Interesting. Just like that. It's really a page source. Oh, nothing interesting. It's an easy block to be ordered. Okay, so there's a robot.txt file. Leads to a my file. Just copy this guy. Just error 404. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Let's try to pause for my files. Because my files, maybe there are files in there. Okay, so let's try to see how we can perform directory listing. But this time around, we do not want to use a tool like GoBuster or ForexBuster. We want to pause for this particular entry. One of pause for this particular entry. Let's make it bigger. This particular entry, which is my files. So what we would do is to use FFUF and just specify online 192.168.113. So what we want to pause for is this. We want to pause everything that comes after this particular variable. So let's see what it can come up with. And FFUF is a variation of GoBuster and directory busting. If you found something secret, you found a new as you can see, there is a result. We have a file named secret. And okay, if we just while this is running, let's just check and see. Secret. Oh. So, hello friend, I'm happy you found my secrets diary. I created like this to share with you my create SSH private key file. It's hidden somewhere here. The hackers don't find it and crack my passphrase with Astra. Yeah. The best friend is X64.
Okay, that's the user that is active.
So,
That is this particular ISX64. I think it's one of the outcomes I expecting from the description of this particular, what do you call it? I think it was requested from the task itself.
okay,
It's one of the deliverables.
What is the name of the second user?
Aside
Nah,
user.
it's not. That's not it.
It's
So
not
we have to we have to actually on the lab. So it says there is a file in here.
Which means back.
Share. Nothing is here.
It's not here.
Okay, so what we can do is we can pause one more time. If it's a file, it's somewhere. Just if it's a file, uh, let's see what it could come. It can come up with. So you need to change the direction it's supposed to pause for us. You know that it is secret, right? So it's supposed to pause here, right?
Mm.
Let's make it it's a file. We're specifying we want files that are .txt.py. Let's make the pause a dot pause. Let's see what happens. So the command we run is supposed to filter out 403 error messages, as you can see. It's supposed to figure out 403 error messages and give us just 200. So that's why we don't have a verbose output of all the entries. Exactly. So let's see, let's see. Let's wait for it to look for. So currently it's just trying multiple directories, pausing for multiple directories for which of them would pull off an error code 200. So yes, so we can see two 200s, but we don't see a directory, a possible directory. So hopefully it finds and gives us something.
Mm.
Hopefully it finds and gives us something that we could optimally use for the sake of finding files. Um, okay, so there is something called mysecret.txt. Let's check where that leads us to. Is it my secret? TXT. Yeah. Or is it because of, maybe should be because of the dots? Oh wow, what is this?
This
So,
is an encoding.
so this is encoded, but this is obviously not base 64,
Okay.
neither is it an MD5 hash. So we need to find, we need to find,
Like sharp.
this is not a SHA-256. This is not. So we need to find what framework and what format of encryption this is stored in. Let's check CyberChef. Let's just look CyberChef. So just put it in here. Tell it to bake. Let's say from, it's not base 64. Let's try the magic. Come on, nothing is here. It's gonna waste time. Okay, so you can just keep trying, or okay, let's just try a few more. Then
There's no tool that we can use to verify which people are coding that.
yes, there should be the code should be able to do that for us. So this is not base 32. It's not base 32. Let's try base 45. It's not base 45. Okay, I think it seems to be base 58. Because we have, it says an open SSH private key.
Ah,
Let's try
I think that's it.
the code. Let's try decode and cryptography. Want to identify what kind of cipher this is. So if we just try to analyze, let's see what it tells us. It tells us base 58. So this is base 58. So this should be this it should be this. Well, this is a private key that we can use to log in SSH. But how do we use this? First things first. I think we're done with this guy. So we can just clear you out. And then, so the first thing we want to do, or the next thing we want to do, first thing, I think I should keep this in here. And so we have a username, i6x64. If we type SSH, i64, what's this password? It cannot be. It cannot be.
The what? Private key.
Yes, that cannot be the password.
Perhaps we need to
So we need to crack the password. So what we could do is so let's save this. Let's save this as SSH. But it's an RSA file. So we need to crack this. So we could just do SSH to John. Because first things first, we need to turn it to a format that John can use. SSH to John, move it to John hash, name it John hash. So this has, we've converted it to a format John can use. Now we'll just use John to extract, and we'll just word list .q.txt, the 14 million password. So John is going to crack John hash. Okay. Coded one.
password.
SSHRC. Then to do SSH to John. John hash. Why is it not working? Okay, let's try. Here it mentioned something. Said Where was it? It said track my passphrase with fast track. So what fast track is now is what I don't know. So what we could do, we could just go into a new tab, full screen, and just locate fast track. Mhm. Okay, there's a word list called fast track. User share word list fast track.
Instead of John.
Probably fast, not John, instead of what's the name? What do you call it now?
Rocket.
Rock you.
Rock you word list.
Yes. So
It's still same thing.
doing the same thing. Why? And this we have John. So we have the John hash right here. Let's clear. Mm, yeah. Okay. Let's see. John, this. So probably we should just let's see what this is. This is private key. Okay. This is John. Let's cut John hash. Cut John hash. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. John hash. Why is it not? Very, so no password hashes left to crack. Okay. Interesting. Let's try. Okay, so while this is working with Magic, let's just try and see what Magic pulls up for us. And then You can somebody says somebody doesn't give us a great deal of information, so the problem would most likely be from here. That shared word list. Let me check for the correct command. Let's repeat this command now. Um, yes. Mm, okay, what happens when we try to SSH-I? Oh, wow. That's supposed for a password. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's see. John Hash. Word lists. Equal to user share. User share. User share word lists. Let me see. Copy. Yeah. So- oh shit. This is SSH to John. Let's call it hash. So what could be wrong with the command? Let's check online. Crack SSH RSA with John. So this way, mm, sometime because open and test. So this is what we're looking for. So all right. So you can just copy this. Where are we? Okay. And just copy this. Finish. Zoom. John show hash. One password hash cracked. Says check here.
That password I do.
Oh, okay. So it's cracked it already. Still did crack it already. We've just been looking for it. So it's cracked it already, actually. Did crack it. Or we could just do this instead. Oh, let's save as. Let's just change the name to SS to SSH underscore RSA, and then SSH to join. So we'll convert it one more time to a format that John can use. So let's see this, and let's cut hash. So we could just use John now. Clear you out. When we clear this particular our terminal now, we can use John to perform a brute force. Hopefully, it gives us a verbose response this time around. So we want to see like entries that is actually brute forcing. Although we've identified that it's done, it did that already. So we could just go hash. Okay, so it's not going to do that because it's apparently it's cracked it already. So we'll just use this password to log in using our SSH RSA key. Now, first things first, we want to make it executable. So we use the command SSH hyphen SSH no chmod 600 SSH underscore RSA. Now we can use SSH. We can now try to log in to SSH using user. It tells us to enter the pass key for the RSA encryption data we decrypted, which happens to be this guy. So if we paste clipboard and hit enter. Okay. So, all right. So now we can begin the process of trying to elevate. So now we found our user flag and we found our user flag. So now the next thing we want to do is see how we can elevate privileges and the likes. So if you type in exit, list all contents in the directories. So we see that there is a history, there's a history, there's a bash logout, and blah blah blah. So let's see the permissions this guy has. So you see that there is another user as seen, right? Well, we can confirm this by if we cd to home, if we home, we see that there are two users. We have the user Arsene and I6S64. So if we just go back to ICE, what we want to do now is, so there is this file. Let's see if we can execute this file. If it is possible to execute this file, possibly it tells us that user ISX64 may run the following commands on Lipin 1. So this user can use this particular command. So what happens when I try to use it as first user? I get a permission denied. So I'm getting permission denied because I don't have appropriate privileges to run this particular command. So I think the next thing to do is to find how we can run an automated script that would help us identify potential escalation paths. So we can use lane pish dot sh. So we can just host cd ay not if we use this guy, then we can, okay, let's just navigate into our directory, and now we can we can start a Python server here, and just start a Python server in our own machine. And going back here, we could just wget http 192.168.56.1 /impish. All right, tells me to go to port 8000, config or 8000. So to just you could do wget. So it says, yeah, we see that we're able to download something right here. But what we can do instead is to download the content of our privilege escalation directory, which happens to be the linkage.sh, into the cloud and into the network itself. So if we do HTTP 192.168.168.56.1 8000, tell it to go to so let's see what happens. cd linkage. If we navigate to the directory, my directory, so let's just start our Python server there. Same thing. Let's tell it linkfish.sh. Okay. We've been able to download our linkfish.sh exploit into our network. So quickly we could just run a chmod. This is 777 on linkfish. We're trying to make it executable. So that way, if we start linkfish.sh, let's see what it's able to come up with alongside. This might take a little while, but linkfish.sh is a Linux script that tests for privilege escalations, all the files, every bunch of information that exists on a Linux system. So it has a variation known as the WinPiece, which is used for Windows environment. So this serves as a tool for Linux. Its variation serves as a tool for the Windows environment. So we're just going to run the script, see what we can find or harvest out, and then from here we can continue forward. Okay, so we found this. So one more time, let's just LA, sorry, sudo -l. So what happens when we type /home/async .py. Let's see if we can. It says it has a web browser open, blah 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 blah. It's not yet ready to get in now. So it means there's a Python script inside of this file. But we need to find, so let's see if we can find web browser. Okay, so I think it tells us there's something here. User library Python 3.9 web browser.py, which happens to be this guy over here. It tells us a link to this. So if we check our results from our script, we should find interesting information. That is a bunch of information to process. Okay, so we have, user environment. We have a username. We have exploits that can be used. Okay, there's a suggestion for Linux exploits. We'll find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and a number of exploits. So this basically enumerates everything that is going on this network. And to probe further, you should be able to understand how okay. So the more time we have. Okay, so we see that there is a portion that tells us users with console. It says async, ISX, and root. Okay, no problem. And if we check this group that defines all the users, we discover that the user async has more privileges and is above is x64. So it means for us to get root, we have to find a way to become user access first. That's basically what it means. So what we could do is to take a look at that Python script that's going on in there. Copy this. Okay, so okay. So we'll find that there is a system for it to spawn a bin bash shell that sends back, that imports from the system itself, as you can see right here. That spawns from the system itself. So what we could do is to switch to user as seen. I want to believe there is a linear relationship between both of them. So we can just switch to as seen and okay, let's just oops. Also X. So what we can do is to switch to user and scene. So first things first, let's get a hold of that part, which is this. So for me to execute this particular script here, I don't know if you noticed that I have to become user async first because it belongs to async. So what I will do is sudo u and possibly just copy this person and paste into my clipboard. What did it say? Unknown user being Python 3.9. Okay, I think there's a mistake. You're supposed to specify the user, right? Specify the user. So if you notice, name has changed to Arsene. So we are now user Arsene. What we could do now is to perform is to do, I think, yeah. Okay, so I think we've been able to point this machine. Ah, God, so we might have gotten a solution to this box. So it tells us that there's a pip operation going on here. So, and this user can run the following commands as on the machine and gain roots without password. If you can exploit this thing, pip, that means there's a PIP setup ongoing. So what we'll do now is we'll head over to GFT or G whatever this GFTBO, and under PIP, so it has like a bunch of misconfigurations depending on what is running. So we'll just search for PIP because we're trying to exploit this. So it says for shell, we're trying to get a shell. This is what we use. So it says it can be used to break out from a restricted environment by spawning an interactive system shell reverse shell. So once you gain, so this is sudo. If the binary is allowed to run as super user by sudo, it does not drop the elevated privileges and may be used to access the file system, escalate, or maintain privileged access. So what we'll do is to copy one of these one by one and impute it into our terminal. Enter. Look, I hate black. Enter, and the final one, which is sudo pip install, whatever this is. Just copy, and I strongly believe there's another way to solve this lab. Everything I'm doing is just who am I? Let's try to get user ID. Wow, no fun. Root. And we've been able to, yeah, we've been able to solve the lab and gotten enough access. So it would LSLA the okay, so it spawned the root shell in the TMP directory. You can see doing that from here. Yeah. Yeah, so we will just try Python 3 import import pty on this is correct. Bin /bash bin bash. We said it can't do that. So it's trying to spawn a shell. So a stable terminal. Okay. But wait, I should work now. Python please. I can see import. Trying to import pty.pty. So import pty colon pty dot on bin bash bin bash. Hope it works. Python also. I typed Python 3 first and I said Python. Anyways, point is, I was just trying to stabilize the shell, but we've been able to gain root on the system and we expected so many things at this point, but yeah, it helps. So let's just head over to our lab and complete today's task and see what it tells us to do. So what's the name of the second unit? I think we already know.
The arsenal.
Yeah, arsen. So yeah, and that completes today's lab and we're able to fund this. So basically, we're able to expect a whole number of misconfigurations from file misconfigurations to what else now? To so many things, SUID permissions and the likes of them all. And I mean, we've been able to establish how to breach a network properly, looking at understanding how those network misconfigurations come. So I think with that, we've been able to conclude today's topic. So just head over to questions and sessions for questions and answers. So if you have questions, you can ask now and we'll take everyone's questions now. Thank you. Questions.
Um, Hello everyone. Good afternoon. I hope we all enjoyed the section. I hope we understood a lot more about misconfiguration. So this section is for question and answers. Please feel free to send in your questions. If you had questions or certain unclarity during the section, now it's time for you to drop all your questions so that we can take them one after the other. Please feel free to send them in. Thank you.
This thing is supposed to work. I don't know why it's not working.
Ewo, my mic is muted.
My mic is on.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My mic was muted. So this is time for question and answers, and we hope you all have certain clarities now about misconfigurations, how the tiniest bit of a misconfiguration can lead to a system breach. So please feel free to send in your questions this section. If there is anything you did not understand, you would like us to make some clarifications, please, this is the time for all your questions. Send them in and we will take them one after the other. Thank you.
So this helps me to, sometimes a shell is unstable by default because the shell is unstable. We want to stabilize this by making the shell turn into a terminal. Yes, exactly. So that's why I do it. Yes, I use it as root. You do it dependent of who you are. You just want to make it become a proper terminal. Because as a shell, you can easily kick you out. An EDR can basically kick you out or something because it's unstable. By the time you stabilize your shell, turn it into something else. So it's part of the whole gaining foothold, and so that's why it was easy there. So now I can properly navigate into home, ls, okay, check for whatever the case is. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So
Okay, since there are no questions currently, okay, so in case you're here online and you would like to join our WhatsApp community platform, you can take down the number and send us a request and we will share the link with you to join our WhatsApp community. So if you have any questions later on, you can always post your questions there. So here is the number to send your request to: 08032774492. I'll take it again: 07032774429. You can also join, you can also follow us on Instagram at Hack365 Global for timely updates on when we unveil our next topics, or if we have any activities. You can follow us at Hack365 Global on Instagram, on Facebook. We are on X and also on LinkedIn for timely information. So thank you all for joining today's section, and we are glad to have you. So see you again next week, same time, and stay tuned for the upcoming session. The topic will be unveiled within the week. Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful weekend ahead. Bye.